Hi, I'm Lois Harbaugh. I'm here to introduce Miss Nino, who's giving our artist Zoom talk for Northwest Designer Craftsmen. Lynn has been a member of NWDC for like forever. I think probably sometime in the 1970s she joined. She's a past president of NWDC. And Lynn, how long were you on the board?
Well, I was on the board for 10 years, and I think I served 2 consecutive terms as president.
So she's been like a major ringleader in NWDC, so much so that we awarded her lifetime member status. And Lynn, that leads into, why are you wearing that headdress?
Well, this headdress was awarded to me at a meeting where they made me lifetime member, and it's made by Donna Anderson, fellow member and artist.
Yes, and that was such a nice moment for me because I got to say, is the tiara maker in the house? And Donna ran up and talked about Lynn as the pontiff of NWDC.
That's great. Well, you were president at that time.
That's right. So let's get started now, Lynn. If you can arrange the screen share.
So first, I'm going to tell you this show is about the performance art work I've done in Tacoma. And when I moved here, I was feeling kind of lonesome. I looked around and wondered, where are the other artists? So I started out my art career with Friends of the Rag, a group of wearable artists centered mostly in Seattle. Here's a picture of one of the many costumed events we did. This group had about 60 members, and they did high fashion all the way to Halloween costumes, just a nutty collection. And here is a picture of a naked couple on a table of food. And that went with an opening we had at One Union Square in downtown Seattle. In those days, you could get by with murder. I'm not sure you could do it now. Here's a poster that we made advertising our Renwick show. And this was a National Endowment for the Arts grant. Another nutty pictures, various advertisements. I included this newspaper flyer to tell you how important it is and was to get publicity. Publicity helped us get a big audience. Nowadays, there are hardly any art critics, so it's a lot harder. This costume I made for the Andy Warhol Seattle Art Museum show, and the theme was Martians. We had Martian food and costumes, of course. This was another one of my set of costumes. This one went to the Renwick at another time. It's called You'll Never Walk Alone. And I moved from wearable art to soft sculpture. I learned how to weld and made things like this giant bird. Then I moved into so-called dead dog tables. This one is called rigor mortis. And these are fabric covering the welded steel skeleton. And then at some point I moved into concrete. So I have used a lot of mediums. This is the house I bought when I moved to Tacoma in 2001. Some people say, why the heck did you move to Tacoma? I just couldn't resist buying this very cheap house 2 blocks from Tacoma's waterfront. And I fixed it up. Now it looks pretty much like this. When I looked around, like I told you, I thought, gosh, I don't know where the artists are. They must be here somewhere. I think I have to write a grant and create 6 parties over the summer and invite people to come over and over and over. And then everybody will get to know each other and I'll get some friends. In Tacoma, we have the listserv, the brainchild of Amy McBride, I believe. And you can type an invitation into the listserv and about 1,000 artists see it. So it wasn't too hard to attract a lot of people. The event I organized the first time was called Artery of Destiny, and I chose that title because Tacoma at that time was nicknamed City of Destiny, and artery had 2 meanings, of course. So each month I featured something different. The grant paid for me to hire people. And the first person I hired was a photographer. We took headshots of all of the attendees and then got them to come back the next month by telling them we would laminate their picture into a bona fide artist ID. There aren't many pictures that survive that Artery of Destiny series of events because cell phone cameras just weren't that popular. So believe it or not, people that I barely knew would come up to me and go, God, I've got a little play in mind. Can I do that next month? So I always just said yes. And we had a wide variety of entertainment. That led to the 100th Monkey parties. And I want to tell you about the 100th Monkey concept. It's sort of like a cop gives a ticket at a certain intersection to 1 car and then 2 cars and pretty soon 50 cars. And by the time he gives out 100 tickets, everyone in town knows to avoid that intersection, or they can always just slow down. So I applied that to the Tacoma art scene. I felt like if people kept coming together over and over and over, friendships would develop. We sold tiles each time. I found an artist that would make 100 somethings and we would sell them for $3 a piece. And with that money, we produced these paper invitations and mailed them. And of course, I began to get a mailing list because of those Artery of Destiny events I held. I found different kinds of venues to do these, and it was amazing. Tacoma is a small enough town that you can go into a plant store and they don't even know you. And you say, you know, I've got this idea for a party. Will you host this? So we did them in artist studios, bookstores, plant stores, all different kinds of places. And people brought food and drink. And we just had a ball. So here are some of the monkey tiles, we call them. And here are some more in clay. And here are some in paper mache. They were just in every medium you can imagine: wire, paper, clay, cast glass. And each time we also had entertainment. Here's a poet and dancing, a woodwinds concert. And here's a photograph by Chip Van Gilder, one of the many photographers who really helped publicize these things. And most of these pictures you're looking at today are by various photographers. So this is an image showing you different kinds of tiles that we had at each and every event. This one is by Jennifer Holmes, cast glass. These are certainly worth more than $3. This one is a cast monkey hand. After 3 years, I was running out of steam. Another artist in the community took over and ran them for another year or 2. And at that final party, they threw a party for me and gave me a monkey. suitcase sightings. This idea developed in my head because I was sitting in a restaurant on Capitol Hill, and I could see from my seat an unattended suitcase. And pretty soon a cop rolled up and, started casing it out, let's say. And pretty soon a big vehicle came to detonate the suitcase. And this, of course, was soon after 9/11. So that just made me think, my God, suitcases are so suspicious, and they're really very innocent things. And wouldn't it be great if people could look at a suitcase and feel joy instead of fear? There were suitcases. I lined up 125 artists, if you can believe it. And my feeling was you didn't have to be an artist to decorate a suitcase. And here's one in Living Flowers by Kathy Gorfas. So I'm just going to show you a few. You can see there was a giant variety. Here's a photograph of us at a motel. We took these suitcases all over town, so all 125 artists would get an invitation to show up at a motel or a hotel. And we had fellow artists in costume carrying the suitcases into the ballroom of a major hotel downtown, and then had kind of a suitcase inn. Here's a bee inn on the street in front of a Tacoma gallery. By the way, Pierce County Transit created a beautiful map showing an image of every suitcase, and I found 125 businesses to each sponsor a suitcase. The next project, and here you see a little publicity for that project. This project was following a conversation I had with Jen Graves, who was the art critic at the Tacoma News Tribune at the time. And we were talking about the sorry state of Tacoma in those days. And I said, if the cone on the Glass Museum had been facing a different way, we wouldn't have had such bad feng shui. So why not have 12 doors in the 12 major neighborhoods of Tacoma, place them outside, red doors, because everybody knows red doors bring good feng shui. So we had a gallery showing of them first. And here's the red door I made. It has planters at the bottom. And you can see a few of the red doors in each of these images. A local graphic arts firm made a beautiful brochure, kind of an innovative brochure of every door, sans Costner. Here's Bill Turner in front of his door. And these doors stayed outside over a summer. Chip Van Gilder did beautiful photographs of each door, and we framed those and had a gallery opening. And here's my friend, musician Doug Mackey, entertaining the gallery visitors. So I wanted to tell you how important the photographers have been to helping me build a community. At some point, because I knew so many photographers, I invited about 15 of them to each produce a postcard because I was a little annoyed that in any Tacoma venue that sold postcards, they were showing only Seattle postcards. So this is a photograph I made with Tom Holt, photographer, and it's called Liar, Liar, Hair's on Fire. This postcard is made by Di Morgan Graves. And here's one by Ann Mearsman and I think Doug Mackey. And this is Lynn Paganucci, Doug Mackey postcard. So we had about 15 and I carried them around to various venues and the proceeds went to the Emergency Food Network. At some point, I was invited by the Tacoma School of the Arts to make a float for the Daffodil Parade. And the theme of this float was spring cleaning. And you can see a window washer and somebody hanging clothes on a clothesline, somebody ironing. You can't really see it. Somebody there is vacuuming. Here's a better picture of it. So I wanted to remember to tell you there's an expression, and if you're an artist yourself, you know nothing is safe in your home. And that's because you need a certain something to complete a project. And you look around and go, we need a yellow chair on that float and a yellow ironing board and a yellow TV. So you just go ahead and spray paint your own stuff. They're in monkey costumes, and that's because we just happen to have monkey costumes left over from something else. So we loved working in yellow and green so much for those floats that we decided to have a yellow yard sale. Everybody painted found objects, thrift store things, yellow. And we took them downtown and had a sale. And again, the proceeds went to Emergency Food Network. Here's a rehearsal in my yard. And this was just to make sure they were all the right color of yellow. And of course, we used all these ideas as an excuse to have a party. So here they are set up downtown, and I think we sold just about everything. And if not, we just took it back to the thrift store, but now it was a lively yellow. This advertises the lime green sale we had that was part of the Glassroots Festival, a festival somebody else organized. We just kind of tacked ourselves onto it. Oh boy, this is kind of the one that brought our group a lot of notoriety. We got great press for doing this. And this one, figurehead roll. The idea stemmed from the fact we had a lot of unpopular local politicians and others. And let's roll their heads down the hill. So we did this. The music was La Traviata. And it took about 60 people to organize this. Here's sort of a group portrait. In the middle there is Carl Reyes, who was one of our main opera singers. And in the foreground are the monks and the jesters. And these people were going to be able to sweep the heads we made down the hill. So here's Claudia Riedner doing a cast of local politician's face. By the way, we asked our mayor, can we roll your head down the hill? Oh, no way. He was not up for that. However, a local museum director that was quite unpopular, she said, oh boy, everybody's gonna love seeing my head roll downhill. So from those masks, we cast plaster positives. And then we turned them over to an artist who vacuum formed in plastic 1,000 fronts of heads and backs of heads. And then as a team, we glued them together with gravel inside. So they looked kind of like that, the one on the right, of course. And here you see Sue Carr. She didn't sing. She was one of our actresses running up and down the street. We did this downtown on a steep hill. You can see the stage behind her. Another artist cut these pieces out of cardboard, and we built a fire right on the street. There are our two opera singers singing La Traviata. The opera singers themselves borrowed the costumes from the opera company, and that was nice because I thought I might have to build those costumes besides all the other work we were doing. And the wigs, of course. So an element of this show involved making a 7-foot-tall paper mache egg. And this baby was going to be in the egg as we wheeled it down the hill to the bottom, where she would jump out in that characteristic New Year's Eve celebration idea. However, it was crowded. There were 3,000 people lining the streets. She had a tantrum. No way was she going into that egg. So she had a sister who was about 8 years old. It wasn't quite the right idea, but it was, still fun, let's say. Here's what the street looked like. You can see there are plastic bags there holding the audience back, and they're filled with shredded government documents. And Tacoma's waste management was very wary of letting us have this. And they said, you have to bring this back. We cannot have these bags opened or looked at. So here the heads are being dumped into the street, and the heads would not roll, period. And it was either because it was raining or it was because the audience got so excited they just fell right into the street and started grabbing the heads. Of course, I was pretty upset. It seemed like my whole thing was going sideways. And here the people are breaking into the plastic bags and throwing the shredded documents into the air. I was mortified. I thought, oh my God, I can't get these back to waste management. There's no way I can get this back in the bags. And at that moment, a festival producer approached me somehow, and he put his hands on my shoulders and looked me right in the eye, and he said, "You are absolved of any of this." I was so relieved. And you can just see how joyful everybody was. This is what it looked like the next morning, and you can't really tell how wet it is in this picture, but the paper looked like oatmeal. It's not art unless it has the potential to be a disaster. Well, that night, I felt like this thing really failed. However, we got so much press, newspaper reviews of the show, television crews. Everybody loved that piece. It was rather amazing. So now, about 15 or 20 years later, I kind of like it myself. Mega Chess is the brainchild of fellow artist John Carlton, and he asked me to help him find artists to make the chess pieces and to set the show up. So we did this at Tollefson Plaza, which is basically a concrete slab in downtown Tacoma, right on the main street. This is a park that's never used. There are no trees. So we thought, you know, it's already gridded for a chess game. Let's do our event here. So I called the city just to make sure they weren't scheduling a marathon race or something else there. And they informed me that it would cost $650 for us to use half the square for half a day. And oh, if I were a nonprofit, it could be a little cheaper. And of course, we were very annoyed by this and decided we're just going to do it anyway, like the rebellious artists we are. So here you can see it all gridded out. And the artist made chess pieces. They were assigned to do it out of appliances. So you can see irons, toasters, sewing machines, vacuum cleaners, and so forth. And here are the clocks we made, operated by humans. And then, of course, some of us had to dress up in straight outfits and protest the artists who were using this place without paying for it. Well, I thought I would show you just a few costumes. You know, that's sort of my main deal. Here's a 9-foot wide dress I made, and this was inspired by a dress I saw in a play at Intiman in Seattle about 40 years ago. And I just never forgot that dress. It was interesting to watch someone move around in a 9-foot wide thing. This one is made out of newsprint. It was so popular, the Fremont Arts Council hired me to run a workshop in making large dresses. The dress you're looking at right now is made out of coffee filters, which, by the way, have endless possibilities. Think about using those in your next project. Here's another newsprint dress. This one happens to be at the Fremont Solstice Parade, and another one at the parade. And here's Shannon Lowe, actress and dancer in one of those white dresses. So wearing these giant dresses, they walked 2.5 miles in a parade. Someone hired me to create this paper dress on this woman. And it took about 12 of us, and we worked for about 6 hours. And weren't we lucky she didn't need a pee break during that time? So this is mostly newspaper, cartoons, fringed paper, duct taped together, glued together, stapled together. Here was a bra parade using found objects. And I was commissioned to repair a cast concrete sculpture. That's it on the right. Of course, that head is a casting of my own head. It has nothing to do with the sculpture. Anyway, I was commissioned to make some repairs to that. So here I am just hamming it up in my studio. Looped on You involved about 20 artists who knew how to crochet. And we crocheted outfits on 2 dancers. And I don't know if you can make them out. The first one, Stephanie is laying closest to us. And the other woman looks like she's got her face into the pillow. So we're just making these costumes right on them. And they are looped together. And because they're dancers, they did a dance at the culmination. It took us also about 6 hours to make these costumes. And then, of course, we had to cut them apart. The Chinese Reconciliation Park is in the north end of Tacoma. And once a year, they have a festival. And this one featured animals, the 12 animals of the zodiac. Here's the horse, and fellow artist Becky Fraze and I made the horse. You can see it's made out of cardboard, foam, miscellaneous lightweight things. And here it is painted. So these are lined up to be in a boat race. Here's a rooster, an ox, a pig, the rooster again. And they were in canoes and rowboats and dragon boats and kayaks. So in the distance there, you can see the monkey and the dragon and the rat. The only one missing, I don't see the snake. Here it is. Here's the snake in the upper left-hand corner. So these were just made out of all kinds of throwaway materials, paper, plastic, scraps of fabric. And this group portrait is by Peter Serco. The next show I'm going to talk about is Hijack, and Figurehead Roll and Hijack were both New Year's Eve events in downtown Tacoma. And these were both main events. So this one says, bring your homemade recycled instruments and perform with Hijack. So we encouraged making your own instruments out of found objects, of course. And my friend and fellow artist, Jory Atkins, made these small posters that we circulated with the ideas of things you can do. And you might remember as a kid squishing soda pop cans and stomping around on them. Before a lot of people started to arrive, we took this picture. I don't know how I managed to do this, but I got a freight container delivered downtown, and you can see it there. And then on top of it, on the left, is a 10-foot square Jack-in-the-Box. And we had a surprise coming up out of the top of it at midnight. We used that freight container. Our MC was up there and dancers, and they were, we'll say, ostensibly dancing to the music the crowd was making by banging on tin cans and rattling plastic containers. Those are toasters sitting around the edge. And we were giving away slices of bread so people could make New Year's toasts. Of course it was raining. It's New Year's Eve. And here's our crowd. It was pretty satisfying to see that people came out to our event, even though it was raining. Here's Barbara Depiro, and we collaborated. She made this musical instrument for our guests to use. A couple of revelers. So at midnight, our Ganesh came up out of the box. And, I'd never made a 25-foot inflatable that was going to pop up out of a box before. I can't say it was 100% successful. His foot got caught on the inside. And like I've said so many times, we were a group of artists just shooting from the hip, designing various parts of these events that we hoped would work. And often it was chaotic, but we sure had a good time, and talk about the friendships that form. So here's a better view of the Ganesh. And we're probably in this picture, probably trying to figure out how to release that arm from inside the container. The third New Year's Eve event I did, Nose Ringers versus Old Farts.
The place, Tacoma, Washington. The town, 2013. New Year's Eve. The event, Nose Ringers versus Old Farts. A gravity-powered art car race. The show begins with a big welcome to the thousands who have come from all over the world to see this heraldic event of Wagnerian proportions. As the races are set to begin, you can almost smell the tension as the gripping drive for victory pierces the phone. And here they go!
Ride of the Valkyries was the music we chose. That seemed to go really well with the 12 race cars we were racing. So I lined up the artists to make the race cars, and then we thought a really good theme was pitting the old against the young. That's why our title is Nose Ringers versus Old Farts. Here's our MC, Doug Mackey. And here's another event that went fairly sideways. The cars were at the top of the street and the MC was at the bottom. And we didn't really stop to think that it might be quite crowded with spectators. And Doug couldn't really read the hand signals at the top of the hill as to which cars were going when. So people like myself were down at the bottom of the hill, finding out what Doug needed to know, and then running through the crowd up the top to find out who's next. So Doug basically ad-libbed that whole race. He had no idea what was going on, and neither did we. And luckily, the audiences never know what's expected, so it works out. We had bales of hay, hopefully to protect the audience. And yes, one car did lose a wheel and go careening into the audience. Our jury, I made these kind of hand puppets of the faces of the city council, and then also lined up artists to make trophies for the winners. And here's our fabulous opera singer, Carl Reyes, who led the 10 extra opera singers who went up and down the street in between the car races. Here they are. So here are the winners and various helpers. Of course, all these things take an enormous crew, but by this time in Tacoma, I had met so many talented artists, and a community had developed, not entirely because of these events I organized. There were other artists in town doing things as well. And when you do the hard work of putting these events on, you become friends, close friends. So it's been a wonderful trip. So really the last thing I'm going to show you is Chaos on the Ave. And this, of all the things I've done, this is my favorite one. And of course, chaotic. This is kind of a rehearsal. We lined up about 20 people who could sew and would bring their sewing machines to the 6th Avenue Business District for their annual street fair. And in front of the sewers, we erected a scaffolding. Here's Rick building the scaffolding. It's about 25 feet high. And you can get a better picture here, and it's in front of all the sewers. And my idea stemmed from the knowledge that in Cuba, often in a factory, there would be a speaker in front of the workers, entertaining or educating them by reading. So this event was to be 6 hours long, and I lined up 12 speakers to each speak on the subject of peace for half an hour.
What are you doing?
To make war for the sake of peace.
Yet another opera singer, Sue Carr. So everybody knows you can talk about peace until you're blue in the face and nothing changes. Meanwhile, the stitchers are sewing streamers and runners are taking it up to the top of the scaffolding and hanging it. Here's Lloyd Herman, one of the speakers, very dignified looking and, you know, persuasive. You would think that he could create some peace, but no, all we got was chaos. So this went on for 6 hours, people running around, people in goofy costumes. We just had so much fun. And part of the fun was the mystery of what we were up to. At the late in the day, a woman came up to me and she said, "What's going on here?" And I said, "Well, we're trying to create peace, you know, by talking about peace all day." And she looked at me and she said, "Are you crazy? This is like the messiest thing I've ever seen." She said, "Is this supposed to be art?" And I don't know why, somehow I was thrilled with that conversation. She was really ticked off. And by the way, it didn't cost, nobody paid for that piece. So it wasn't even like wasted money from her standpoint. It was just a waste of time. So somehow I found that very satisfying. The very last thing is I want to tell you that in 1999, I persuaded NWDC to start the Living Treasures Video Project. And, you know, talk about collaboration. It takes so many people to do this. We raised money. It takes a lot of donations. It takes talented video crews. It takes a graphic artist to make these DVD covers. And right now, of course, we're premiering the 10th video, the one on Lloyd Herman. And that has been a very satisfying endeavor, both for me and Northwest Designer Craftsman. That's it, folks. Thank you.